Hi, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our week-long celebration of active transport. Hope you are all doing well. The Move As One Coalition, of which AltMobility PH is a member, believes that there are several reasons to celebrate active transport in the Philippines. In the past 2 years, the coalition has supported the establishment of bike lanes across the country, from Metro Manila to Metro Cebu to Metro Davao. So welcome to our celebration of Active Transport Week 2022. Today we will be talking about Bikenomics, a study that measures the benefits of biking in the Philippines. And this localized study has been conducted by AltMobility PH and supported by FNF in the Philippines. And we are live on Zoom and also streaming on the Facebook pages of AltMobility PH and the Move As One Coalition. We'd love to hear your thoughts as we present to you Bikenomics. So please feel free to post about it. Share with us your thoughts, or chat with us in the chat box if you're in Zoom, or post your comments if you're in social. Please use our hashtag #BetterByBicycle, and please feel free to tag your local government officials to inspire them or to demand for better bicycle infrastructure. Again, please use our hashtag #BetterByBicycle. So for those of you joining us on Zoom, we'd like to ask that you mute your respective mics. You can unmute yourself later on during our Q&A discussion. For those joining us on Facebook, please comment your questions and we'll be reading them as well. We'd love to ask you to please turn your cameras on so we'll have a more interactive session. And again, please feel free to put your comments in the chat box or the comment section during social. The Active Transport Week of the Move As One Coalition culminates with a bike ride. Of course, it's a bike ride on Saturday at 4 p.m. at the People Power Monument, and we will end at the grounds at Ortigas East, coinciding with Pasig Transport celebration of Pasig Day. To register for the bike ride, Kat will post the link in the chat box in the comment section. Facebook. So we will begin in a few minutes. Please settle in. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to all of you joining us today. I hope you're all doing very well. Once again, welcome to our celebration of Active Transport Week. Today, we will be talking about Bikenomics. That's a study that measures the benefits of biking in the Philippines. The good thing about this is that for the first time, we have a localized study that measures the benefits of biking. It seems to be that it's been very anecdotal when we talk about the benefits of biking. But through this localized study, AltMobility PH, supported by FNF in the Philippines, able to create a more concrete discussion on the benefits of biking. And to officially open today's event, we'd like to welcome the founder and president of Tipaklong, Mr. Arnold Goofy. Good morning, Sir Arnold.
Hi, good morning, Ira.
How are you?
I'm good.
All right. We'd love to hear from you, sir.
I'll open na. No? Hello and good morning to all. First, I would like to congratulate Move as One Coalition and its partners, the Interagency Task Force on Active Transport, the DOTR, DOH, DPWH, DILG, the local government units, and various stakeholders for spearheading this Active Transport Week. Of course, congratulations as well to AltMobility PH and the FNF Philippines for this groundbreaking research on the economic benefits of biking in Metro Manila. Promoting behavioral change, in our case, promoting active transport as a serious mode of moving people is one of the most difficult things to accomplish. It is noteworthy that the necessary infrastructure for active transport is continually being implemented throughout the country, and kudos to all stakeholders who made it possible to build almost 500 kilometers of bike lanes during the pandemic. Constructing the necessary infrastructure, ensuring safety of bikers and the likes are important in our quest to make biking a mainstream means of mobility in the city. However, the challenge is really on how we can convince more people to hop on their bikes instead of their cars to bring them to where they want to go. We can surely convince them that biking has health benefits and also contribute to emission reductions and alleviate traffic congestion. But I believe that the most convincing argument for people to change their behavior is always economic. And it has never been timelier than now, with the skyrocketing price of petroleum and the high inflation rate in the country, that we can convince our kababayans to try biking and show them how much they're going to save for using their bicycles instead of their cars or motorcycles. In almost a decade of living and working in Singapore, I have witnessed how the Singapore government has encouraged the population to use public transport and other means of mobility, that is, active transport, and discourage people from owning cars. The Singapore government has made it a point to make owning a car so expensive through taxes, the certificate of entitlement, which the last time I checked has cost around 73,000 Singapore dollars, or an equivalent of 2.9 million pesos, just for you to have the right to own a car. The electronic road pricing, the equivalent of congestion charge in the UK, and the prohibitive parking fees in the city center. This makes car ownership in Singapore 3 to 4 times more expensive than in other ASEAN cities. To convince the population not to own their cars, the Singapore government ensured that the train and bus systems are the best among the ASEAN countries and comparable to, if not better than, the other developed cities globally. Singapore is also a city where active transport is well supported with the extensive bike lanes, networks, and walkways. With this observation and experience, I believe that active transport, supporting a robust public transport system, would be the long-term solution to our perennial transport problems. And convincing people on the economic benefits of biking and active transport will be key to achieving this goal. Once again, I am honored to open this very important session, and I hope that you will enjoy, learn a lot from it, and take away important lessons, and most importantly, be convinced to ditch your cars and hop on your bikes. Thank you very much, and mabuhay.
Thank you very much, Sir Arnold. And I guess this is a different way of convincing people, as you pointed it out. We've always been talking about the many benefits of biking, but this is the first time that we are talking about the economic benefits of biking. And I guess, as you mentioned it might be a more powerful tool to get people to consider taking their bikes, or at least providing the proper infrastructure to allow people to consider it as a main form of transportation. Obviously, the current climate and the current increase in fuel prices is another factor that drives that point down. I'd also like to recognize Miss Edna joining us today as our FSL interpreter. Thank you very much for joining us today and making this forum more inclusive. Let's now get to it. Let's now get to the whole point of why we're all here. I'd like to welcome the Bikenomics team that will be presenting to us the results of the Bikenomics study. AltMobility PH is the country's first advocacy organization composed of professional transport practitioners that has created this study. We've been inspired to translate the benefits of biking to more concrete terms, as we mentioned earlier. So to start us off and to introduce the reason for this study, I'd like to welcome Cola Covarrubias of AltMobility PH. Good morning, Cola.
Morning. Thank you, Ira, for that wonderful introduction. So, we in AltMobility are really proud to present a research study, Bikenomics Assessing the Value of Cycling in the Philippines. Just to provide some background on the study, we saw over the pandemic how more and more people had shifted to cycling as a mode of transportation. It's fast and efficient, it's helped people stay out of enclosed spaces, just to name a few of its many benefits. We also know that cycling is not just a pandemic thing, it is an integral part of our post COVID recovery solution, most especially now that we are experiencing a global oil crisis and it's very difficult to cope with the rising prices of fuel. And with that, we wanted to dig deep at these specific numbers. What exactly are the economic benefits of cycling in the Philippines? We zoomed in on these three objectives. First, we wanted to assess what exactly is the cost of our car-centric transportation system and compare this to the monetary returns and savings generated by shifting to active transport. Second, we wanted to compile and analyze initial baseline data on the cost-benefit analysis of factors that affect cycling in Metro Manila. And lastly, we wanted to create awareness to build up conversations with LGUs, legislators, and private sector about this push to shift to more bike-friendly policies and infrastructure in the Philippines. Moving on to the scope and methodology of the study. So the group had conducted this research for a total of 4 months from September to December of last year. And given that we were dealing with some time constraints and we didn't have the time to collect primary data, we used the data that was already available, which primarily covered Metro Manila. And the analysis methods that we used were adopted from international examples. Moreover, we segmented the study into these four focus areas: infrastructure and business, health, energy and environment, and community impact. Now, I turn over the floor to Keisha Mayuga, who will be discussing infrastructure and business.
Thank you so much, Koala. So again, reiterating, we have the focus areas and we'll take you through. So if you can see this little map, this is exactly how we're going to go through it. So first infrastructure and business, then we'll go to health, energy and environment, and then lastly, community impact. So I'll start with the infrastructure and business, which is probably the first thing that people think about when they think, oh, what are the economic benefits to, anything in the country. So with that, let's start with at a personal level. So we already know, and I think it's very obvious, that cycling really saves money at the personal level compared to owning a car. But by how much? Take note, we computed this end of 2021, so it might be higher now with the fuel prices. But from owning and using a bike compared to using a car, you can actually save more than 250,000, probably now 300,000 pesos a year, which is equal to more than 6,000 kilograms of rice in a year. So imagine the impact of that for any social class, actually, that's a lot. 300,000 pesos a year just from using your bike instead of owning a car. Now let's go at the business level. So we went around and we also asked businesses how much cycling has really impacted their business. And a lot of the businesses said that up to 25% of the people who went to their business during the pandemic were actually cyclists. So they had more revenue from the people who were coming in by bike. And if the restaurant or if the retail stores had space outside to create spaces for outdoor dining and even cyclists, as we can see here in the corner, they can create more revenue of up to 648,000 by investing in bike parking instead of car parking. Now, let's look at the cost in a bigger level, like in a city level. So we also know that the cost of traffic in the Philippines from the time that we wasted is a lot, but by how much? On average, Filipinos actually use up 23.5 days on the road driving, being stuck in traffic. Imagine that's like a whole month of vacation leaves. So because of that, 188 hours according to TomTom in traffic per year actually costs at least 26 million pesos, almost 27 million pesos to the economy just from the loss of the time that should have been spent doing more productive things like working or doing other things like, you know, having a leave, etc. So lastly, which I think is the most impactful here, is the cost of lane construction. And the cost of bike lanes is actually so much less than compared to if you built a new road. If you built a new road, it would go up to around 27 million pesos per kilometer. But from the computations that we got based on the data of our new bike lanes, the cost of one bike lane or 1 kilometer of bike lane actually goes to around 3 million pesos. So imagine the cost of creating 1 kilometer of car road, like a lane, in Metro Manila would actually build almost 10 kilometers of bike lanes, which is huge because then we can cover almost the whole of Metro Manila if we, you know, don't prioritize creating another lane. Maybe we could even move more with creating a new bike lane. So that is it for the infrastructure and business part. Now I'm going to pass it to Iya Mora, who will discuss the health part. Iya?
Thanks, Keisha. Hi, everyone. I'm Iya. I'm one of the directors here at AltMobility PH. And for this section, we'll be looking into the different health benefits of biking. Starting with number one, that biking is very good for our health. And I feel like this is something that we're all aware of. If you are a regular biker, this is probably one of your major considerations in choosing to bike more often. And so biking is good for our health because it allows us to easily meet the minimum physical activity requirements set by the World Health Organization for adults to maintain a healthy lifestyle. In fact, with just 40 minutes of cycling daily for 5 days a week, which is around the same amount of time you would spend on your daily commute to work or to school, with just that amount of cycling, you will be able to meet this minimum physical activity requirements for adults and lose anywhere between 1,100 to 1,700 calories. And just to help us visualize what those calories are worth, that's equal to around 5 chicken joys. So if you're wanting to get a bit healthier, to reach those fitness goals, incorporating biking into your lifestyle can definitely help. So that's the first major health benefit. The second major health benefit is the potential of biking to generate significant amounts of health cost savings. And we examine this within the context of how biking can help reduce our risk of contracting non-communicable diseases. Examples of these are coronary heart disease, type 2 diabetes, breast cancer, colon cancer, and stroke, which are some of the top NCDs in the Philippines and are responsible for around 68% of all deaths in our country. And the connection here is that physical inactivity or the lack of physical activity has been identified as one of the leading risk factors in contracting NCDs. And in the Philippines, 2 out of 5 adults, or around 40% of our adult population, is considered physically inactive by WHO standards. And so within this context, again, incorporating physical movement in our everyday activities, such as getting to work, getting to school, going to the grocery, can help us not only meet our sustainable goals for our cities, but actually even will also help us meet our public health goals. And so in figures, our findings show that for every kilometer cycled, society gains around 0.26 pesos worth of health cost savings. And that seems like a small amount. However, if only 5% of trips within Metro Manila are made on a bicycle, the health cost savings would amount to around 738 million annually, which is enough to build 246 kilometers of bike lanes every year. And that's just considering the trips within Metro Manila. How much more if we consider all the kilometers cycled are across the Philippines? This figure would be much higher. And so this shows that just by looking at the health cost savings from cycling, annual investments in cycling infrastructure can be justified. Last but not least, the third major benefit of cycling is the fact that more cyclists mean safer roads. So this is more commonly known as the safety in numbers effect. Research has shown that as the number of cyclists and pedestrians actually increase, the likelihood of getting involved in a road crash decreases. And in the Philippines and all over the world, road crashes are one of the leading causes of premature deaths. It is at this point a public health crisis. In 2019, the economic cost of road crashes amounted to around 75 billion pesos in the Philippines. And so with this, again, research has shown that as we encourage more people to bike, we can also mitigate and control this cost. So that's it for the health sector. I'd like to call on Sarah for the energy and environment sector.
Thank you, Iya. So hi everyone, I'm Sarah Arrojado and I'm here to discuss the energy and environment sector. So this sector covers the environmental damage of emissions as well as of noise and air pollution caused by vehicles. These are then compared to the benefits of cycling to the environment, including their cost, effects, and potential benefits on cities. First is the cost of emissions. So in the Philippines, transport is the largest source of air pollution and energy-related greenhouse gas emissions at 34%, with road transport accounting for 80% of those emissions. And under a business-as-usual scenario for road transport, greenhouse gas emissions in Metro Manila for 2025 can amount to 19,300 kilotons of carbon dioxide equivalent, or CO2e. This amounts to 48.25 billion pesos in current prices. So if you think about it, already fund 10 Metro Manila BRT projects, like the one proposed to run from Quezon City Circle to Manila City Hall. So imagine that. Next, cycling can help in the fight against climate change as it emits 10 times less emissions per kilometer than driving. So considering the production and operation of a car, driving emits about 271 grams of CO2e per passenger kilometer. Meanwhile, riding a bike only produces 26 grams of CO2e per kilometer. And this already includes the emissions from the production and maintenance of a bike. So this yields savings of around 245 grams of CO2e for every kilometer cycled. And this means that an average bicycle trip in Metro Manila, which is around 11 kilometers, saves about 2.7 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent in a day, or 6.73 pesos. Cycling can also be likened to planting trees, given that shifting to cycling saves 2.7 kilograms of carbon dioxide emissions in a day. 57,000 tons of carbon dioxide emissions can be saved annually if just 5% or 82.5 thousand of car trips in Metro Manila traveling at an average of 11 kilometers are converted to cycling trips. This is equivalent to planting 2.31 million trees in a year. Then in terms of gas money, for a Toyota Vios user, for example, traveling at an average of 11 kilometers a day, shifting to cycling saves about 2.8 liters of gasoline per work week, given that the average of the vehicle is 19.57 kilometers per liter at 60 kph. So if this Vios user bikes to work instead all year round, this can amount to at least 6,000 pesos savings in a year on fuel alone. So this figure is based on the average gas price in 2020 at 45.78 pesos. And considering the recent rise in oil prices, the fuel savings accrued from shifting to cycling will be much higher now. So with gas at 85 pesos, the savings will be doubled now at 12,000 pesos at least. In terms of noise pollution, samples taken from streets near residential areas and parks in Metro Manila average 65 decibels and reach as high as 90 decibels. This is way higher than the recommended environmental noise ranges from 8 decibels at night to 55 decibels during the day to avoid stress, sleep disturbance, and irreversible hearing loss. A study conducted by the UST Faculty of Medicine and Surgery shows that 15% of Filipinos suffer from moderate to profound hearing impairments, and encouraging quieter streets with fewer cars and more cyclists can significantly reduce the noise levels of our cities. So that's it for the energy and environment sector, which shows that shifting to cycling can also yield significant savings from emissions and fuel and increase the quality of life in cities by reducing noise and air pollution. So I'm handing the floor now to Zax Abraham to discuss the community impact.
Okay, I don't know if Zax can. Zax, are you there? But in any case, so this last part we wanted to include, it's not necessarily about the metrics, but it's also equally important to look at how it's impacting the community. So we have community impact here. And it's not always about just the numbers when we're talking about research, but also like, looking at the social side of how cycling is actually making the community a little less hostile and a little more, welcoming for everyone. So for this, we want to talk about 3 points. Very important. Cycling promotes social cohesion. So it brings people together and connects neighborhoods. It's amazing what's been happening in the past 3 years in the Philippines, because before the pandemic, people used to think that cycling in Metro Manila and in any Philippine city or metro area is crazy. As being one of those cyclists myself before the pandemic, it wasn't like it felt like you were alone doing it. But now more and more people are actually cycling. And, it's proof that almost every other week, there's some kind of cycling event happening in Metro Manila or in another part in the Philippines, because it creates community. In fact, there's gonna be a bike ride this Saturday, which Ira will talk about later. But yes, so cycling really promotes social cohesion. There are more people out on the streets, and people want to be on the streets. People want to be happy together, cycling with their friends. So yeah, resilience through cycling. It was as we witnessed, it was one of the modes of transportation that really saved, especially our essential workers in the start of the pandemic. It was so necessary during the lockdowns, and it's still necessary up to today. Not just in terms of health, but in terms of also saving fuel, and in terms of saving time for people to have more time for their families, have more time for doing other things. So cycling is now just not just becoming a plaything or a toy or something that children used to do, but now it's becoming an essential mode of transport. Not even an alternative, but really an essential mode of transportation. And then for cycling and gender, I'm going to pass it now to Zax, who is here with us. So Zax, take it away for the cycling and gender.
Hello, everyone. So for cycling and gender, during the pandemic, many women started biking, and it gave them a form of freedom, a form of independence, because pre-pandemic, a lot of them would take Grabs or take public transportation, but when they didn't have access to those kinds of mobility, biking filled the gap, and they were able to go to the places they had to go and to do the errands they needed to do, because women take most of the domestic roles and responsibilities in the household. In our survey, we talked to women frontliners and women groups to talk to them about their experiences during the pandemic on biking. Although we could not put a monetary value on the amount they were able to save, the experience itself is very significant because it gave them freedom and independence. So that's it for social cohesion and gender.
Thanks, Zax.
We now move on to the conclusion, I think.
Yes. So now we're going to go to conclusion recommendations for people who don't like math, and for people who maybe have been overwhelmed by the numbers and need to look at it again. Don't worry, we got you. We'll summarize it. So as a summary, we again looked at these four important sectors. First, the infrastructure and business. We can actually save up to almost 27 million pesos per kilometer if we build bike lanes instead of building a new car lane in Metro Manila. And for individuals, you can save almost 300,000, or probably by now 300,000 a year if you choose to cycle, especially those short trips that are actually time wasters. So for example, if you're going from BGC to Makati, that's on bike, that is just like 10-15 minutes, compared to if you on rush hour take a car, which could take much longer, especially during rush hour. And then for health, we can see a conservative, this is already a conservative number, yearly savings of 738 million pesos in health expenses. And it could also help lower hearing impairments if more people cycled. So imagine if 5% of trips were just done on bike. That's how much money we can actually save. And that's how much money, it's not just in terms of money, but we're also keeping people in the community healthy. Next, energy and environment. The reversal in car dependence can translate into the reduction of CO2 emissions, which is extremely important now, especially now that we're feeling the heat and we're seeing more extreme weather changes. And we can actually start planting 2.31 million trees a year with the savings. And then lastly, community impact. Cycling has changed Metro Manila in so many ways, and not even just Metro Manila. Other cities outside of Metro Manila, we have in Bacolod, we have in CDO, in Naga, we have in Metro Cebu, that have been building communities and people have been meeting up because of cycling, and it's making us friendlier, and it's such a great way to recover from being isolated to finally seeing people and doing something enjoyable together, instead of before where we would need to drive cars. So it's a huge impact to our community. And so of course we have some recommendations and some things that we wish we could improve on. The purpose of this study, again, I think was, as Ira said earlier, was really to see where we are and see what available data we have. So some recommendations we also have moving forward for data collection, and to do this even more often is to revisit indicators for measurement. So right now, a lot of how we measure time or traveling or transportation is very car centric, but maybe if we look at indicators to measure how people move or how much time people can actually get from A to B in other modes of transportation like bicycles, then we could also improve on this study, and we could also encourage even active modes of travel. Next is to collect data more consistently. One of our challenges is really like we have some data from 7 years ago. We have some data that's like, it's skipping some years, or a lot of the times we actually don't have data at all. So for example, until now, we are still figuring out how many cyclists we really do have in Metro Manila. And I believe that they're doing Metro Manila counts right now this morning. So, but we can't fully capture everything as we want. So it's kind of hard to measure the impact of everything and all the interventions that we're doing without collecting data more consistently. And then lastly, making data more publicly available, for example, crash data or like bike counts if they exist, how they're counted. And it's important to think about how they're also being collected as part of, publicly available data and scrutiny on like what we should be looking at. That those are also important aspects to really see and measure the impact of cycling, not just in Metro Manila, but hopefully in the whole country. The reason why, again, we did this in Metro Manila is because Metro Manila had the most data, but we would love to do this for the whole Philippines if we could. So that's why this is not the end of our study. And also noting that we did this until end of 2021, and we're aware that there's more data available and we're happy about it. But yes, that's hopefully we get more and more of this data and more information so that we can encourage people and show them the actual numbers of what cycling can really do for the community, for their business, and for their health, for the environment, and on an individual level. So that's it, and thank you. I now pass it to Ira for questions and for reactions.
Yep. Thank you very much, Keisha, and the rest of the Bikenomics team. If you're joining us just now, this is the second day of the Active Transport Week celebration of the Move As One Coalition. And we've just finished presenting you the results of the Bikenomics study. If you have any thoughts that you would like to share, please feel free to share your thoughts in the chat box if you're joining us on Zoom, or put it in the comment section if you're joining us on Facebook. If you want to post, please use our hashtag Better by Bicycle, and please feel free to tag your local leaders to inspire them to take action. Again, this just a quick reminder, if I may plug, the Active Transport Week culminates in a bike ride this coming Saturday. The meetup is at 4 p.m. at the People Power Monument, and we will be riding up and down EDSA to find out and to see for ourselves how has the government done in terms of creating bike lanes in the past 2 years. So Kat Moreno will be posting the link to register for that bike ride today. So yep, a very quick announcement. Okay, so moving on. As Sir Arnold has mentioned earlier in the program, there are several stakeholders in order to promote biking or in order to sustain the gains of biking in the last 2 years. So we've invited reactors from 3 different sectors to share with us their thoughts on the Bikenomics study. And I'd like to start with the business sector. The business sector, as we all know, of course, is a key player in the economy. And as any biker would attest, our biking experience, aside from the infrastructure and road regulations, is greatly influenced by how businesses treat us bikers. In particular, end of trip facilities, like do they provide bike parking, and are we welcome to join them, or are we welcome at their establishments? And in this study, we've highlighted, in fact, the benefits of biking to businesses. And so we've invited Mr. Roberto Magalon. Sir Bobby is the president of the Hotel and Restaurant Association of Negros Occidental. Good morning, Sir Bobby. How are you, sir?
Hi, good morning. I hope
Morning, sir.
I hope you can
Yes.
hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you, sir. With the
Okay, thank
implementation of bike infrastructure in your city, can you tell us about the impact of biking to businesses or Negros?
Well, first, of course, no, I think it is because of the gasoline prices, it has become a really an alternative, viable alternative, and on our parts, we are trying to also raise awareness and make restaurants more bike friendly to support this. No? And I think, sorry, and I think by pushing for this, it will certainly benefit a lot of people, a lot of groups. So, our customers who are now, going into biking, also establishments that definitely, for one thing, we will need less parking space if we have bikes rather than big cars. That's one thing for sure, and I'm sure a lot of people will a lot of restaurants will be happy for that. I know it will develop. It's not always. I mean, it's not just right away, but I'm sure it will develop. As we encourage, then more and more people will also be encouraged and create that environment. I hope I answered the question. Just let me know if I need to say more.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Sir Bobby. Recognizing that with the rising fuel prices, that it really has positioned, biking as a viable form of transportation, and that. Well, thank you for creating that awareness, at least in your area, to have more restaurants be bike friendly. Sir Bobby, could you tell us a little bit more about what kind of steps have restaurants taken in your area to make themselves more bike friendly? And as you raise awareness to bikers, can you tell us a bit more about how they react to this, how restaurant owners react to this?
There are a few restaurants who have taken initiatives already, but it helped us when Mr. Carlos Season also presented to the hotel and restaurants the idea of and the initiative of really promoting cycling in the city. We had one such meeting where we were gathered with the boards of the Hotel and Restaurant Association here. Carlos presented to us the whole thing, and how it can benefit and ultimately the whole city. And with this, it has opened our eyes. And like, for example, I know some restaurants who are now consciously putting up an area in their parking space purely for just bike racks, so that bikers will be encouraged. So I think this is one big step.
Sir Bobby, do you find it as a challenge to convince restaurants and the benefits of accommodating more bikers?
Not really, although maybe it will just take a little time. But I'm sure when more and more bikers go around, and they go to restaurants that have parking spaces for bikes. I'm sure this will even encourage them to do it faster. So,
Right.
but as far as convincing, I really don't think it's a big problem. No, it's just really setting the trend and starting the initiative, and I'm sure many restaurants will follow.
Right. In your experience, Sir Bobby, has there been at least one restaurant that has been, I don't know, like really talking about that bikers have made a difference in their business?
I hope it's mine, but no, it's not ours. But I've seen the latest McDonald's shop that was opened during the pandemic. It
Right.
was located along the highway near a real estate development, and they particularly provided areas for bikers for parking, and a lot of bikers really went there. And I think it was good for the business. It is good for the business, and
Right.
a number of restaurants have started to raise their eyes and, ooh, this is an opportunity. So it's something that when the businessmen see how it can impact their business, I'm sure it's a big initiative.
Right. Okay.
So
well,
I would like to, McDonald's has taken a big step here, and it's very good.
Right. And in fact, we've noticed that a lot of the McDonald's have actually changed their drive-through to now say ride-through, to show that it's becoming more inclusive to multiple modes of transportation. And I think that's a great thing for the business sector to take initiative on. Sir Bobby, before I let you go, what do you think are the challenges for more in order to get more restaurants or more establishments to introduce infrastructure to welcome bikers? And how do you think can civil society organizations like Move As One Coalition and AltMobility PH can help get more establishments to welcome bikers?
What are the challenges? Of course, I think we need to support, if we are to grow the biking population, get more people to ride bikes. I think the city also needs to step up protection for bikers, enforce ordinances so that the bikers are protected, because sadly, while we are promoting biking, a lot of the public and private transportation is not promoting it. I mean, on the contrary, they've been very aggressive and hostile, and certainly this is one reason why some bikers are afraid to use their bikes along the main roads. So I think what you guys are doing, raising awareness, that should also help our city officials really push and really support, by also enforcing the necessary regulations to protect bikers. Now, from the business side, well, one of the challenges, I guess, is when, the women, the older groups who who go out. Certainly, we cannot expect them to use their bikes. It's more of the younger people. But nonetheless, in every family, I'm sure there are the younger ones do the make use or enjoy their biking, and they can maybe go to a restaurant together, but later on among their friends, they'll be able to popularize this mode of traveling.
All right. Thank you very much, Sir Bobby. And I think you're right. No? I mean, thank you for pointing that out that while biking may not be for everybody, especially for, as you've mentioned, certain age segments, what it can do is provide an alternative, or at least lessen car dependence in cities like yours. Sir Bobby has mentioned Carlos Season quite a lot. Carlos Season is AltMobility's Bacolod chapter, if I may. And he's been helping us promote biking in Bacolod. And we hope that we can partner more with Sir Bobby and his organization in helping the city government understand that this is not just beneficial for us as advocates of biking, but also a huge help for businesses like the Association of Sir Bobby. So thank you very much, Sir Bobby, for joining us today and for sharing with us your thoughts as as part of the business sector.
Thank you too, and more power, and we look forward to supporting this initiative.
Yep, and Carlos will definitely be working with you a lot, especially with the incoming administration.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Sir Bobby. And hello to you, Carlos, our AltMobility Bacolod chapter. Okay, so earlier in the program, Sir Arnold also mentioned in his opening remarks that it is necessary to change behavior from being car-centric to shift to a more sustainable form of transportation like biking. And early in 2022, if I'm not mistaken, or was it late in 2021, the Social Weather Stations, or SWS, released a study that shows just that there's been a marked change in household behavior since the pandemic. And joining us today is a senior survey specialist of SWS, Mr. Mike and Thomas. Good morning, Sir Mike. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes, good morning.
So, sir, how do you think your study comes together with this Bikenomics study?
Well, to be honest with you, the Bikenomics study is just articulating the benefits of cycling activity. So do I read out my reaction, Sir Ira, or
Yes, of course.
Yes.
You know, we'd love to hear more from you. Thank you so
yes,
much. for joining us.
I tried to organize my thoughts about this, but mostly this would be reiterations of the points that were raised during the presentation. So first off, I would like to congratulate the entire team for this research effort that was presented before us today. This indeed is groundbreaking and comprehensive research that should I say, amplifies and clarifies the voices that advocate cycling as a viable transportation option. As a worker in a non-government organization that focuses on monitoring quality of life and public opinion, I have been taught that if something is important, then we should measure it by asking the appropriate questions. The November 2020 SWS National Survey had items that were sponsored by the Department of Health. And the results of that showed that there is very strong support for one, walking and cycling, and two, prioritizing public transportation, bicycles, and pedestrians over private vehicles. So those are two key attitudinal findings that we had. And in relation to cycling, The May 2021 SWS National Survey found that there are more households that are bicycle owners compared to car owners, with the ratio being 4:1. In addition, 1 out of 4 households nationwide, or about 6.2 million, use bicycles. So in terms of the cycling activity, 1 out of 5 households, or 4.7 million, do essential activities, and 1 out of 10, or 2.3 million, do recreational activities. So going back to the Bikenomics study, by assessing the value of cycling in the Philippines, the authors of the study has showed us the multifaceted positive impacts of cycling to attain a better society. As they have pointed out, cycling saves people's time and money. It brings additional revenue to businesses. It decreases road crashes. It decongests the roads. It lessens pollution. It brings people together, keeps people healthy, and more importantly, empowers them, especially our women and LGBTQ plus na kababayans. Ano? So, in quantifying the benefits of cycling in terms of money that can be saved and spent for better purposes, I think is a major step in convincing government to invest more in cycling as a sustainable mode of transportation. So our government agencies have been doing their part. However, I think there is still a lot of work to be done for cycling to also be a truly safe option. Government should provide additional cycling infrastructure that prioritizes safety and improving on existing ones. I think if an improved cycling infrastructure can convince more people to take up cycling as transportation, especially those who are afraid to try it because of safety reasons, um, I think the people who need to use public transportation the most will have a more humane commuting experience, if we may say so. Of course, the holistic approach should always make mobility safer for pedestrians, the elderly, the pregnant, and persons with disabilities. So in closing my reaction, I hope that sooner or later, when we all look at the bigger picture, cycling will be seen as a vital tool to achieve a better quality of life for all Filipinos. So salamat po.
Thank you very much, Sir Mike. Uh, it's nice to know at least know that given that as you've presented there, I guess to summarize, there really is just more bikers nowadays, no, and it just comes together so nicely that we are able to quantify, as you've mentioned, what that actual benefit is to the growing number of people that are depending on bikes. And I love what you mentioned about how if it improves the quality of life, that it's something that should be measured. And I guess that sort of supports also the necessity for having a study such as Bikenomics and to be able to grow that, or at least this study a bit more, to measure how, or to at least understand how else we could improve the quality of life of everybody. But sir, like you mentioned something in your statement about clarifying the voices, those that are benefiting from this. What exactly do you mean by that, sir?
Well, yung what you said earlier, Sir Ira, mostly the stating of the benefits is anecdotal. So I think the Bikenomics research uh, just put into numbers, nag-quantify siya ng benefits talaga nung cycling and put it in terms of something tangible na that we can save, that the government can save and repurpose for should I say better use. So that's what I mean by clarifying the voices.
I see. Sir, you made reference to to the study that you conducted on the change in behavior of households. Was that a study that was commissioned by the Department of Health? Did I hear that correctly, sir?
Yes, sir. The attitudinal questions in November 2020 was commissioned by the Department of Health along with other items. But the attitudinal questions on active mobility were part of the survey module that was commissioned by Department of Health, and they later released the findings as a public service
Right.
to the audience.
It's just that earlier, Sir Bobby made reference to government policies as something that's very important in order to promote or to encourage more people to consider this. Of course, later on we have a reactor from government also. But sir, based on your, I guess, presentation of this data to DOH, would you be able to share with us their initial reactions, or did they share with you some steps that they will be taking as a reaction to the results of the study?
Well, regarding that, Sir Ira, walang sinabi specifically ang Department of Health, at least directly sa amin, pero parang at least dun sa statement kahapon ni Doc Bev, dun sa opening remarks niya, I think parang inaano siya, parang ini-encourage siya sa at least sa government agency without going into specifics. Opo.
Okay, thank you, sir. I guess just so that everybody also knows, the Move As One Coalition has been or is constantly working together with the IATF Technical Working Group on active transportation, of which the Department of Health is a part of. AltMobility also in the past has collaborated with the Department of Health in creating what was it again, Keisha? Sorry, a manual on biking and in open spaces to ideally help more local government units implement these changes in their respective localities. I also want to take this opportunity to recognize, thank you, Haya, Active Transport Playbook. I'd also like to take this opportunity to recognize our friends from the media that's joining us today. We have the Philippine Daily Inquirer and GMA. So thank you very much for joining us today. We also want to recognize our partners from the Makati Business Club joining us today, and also our local government partners. Thank you for joining us in this presentation of Bikenomics. So we've been talking about government just now, and Sir Bobby has also made reference to this, and quite right, because government plays a very critical role in implementing bike infrastructure and creating policies that can promote biking as a superior or as a primary form of transportation. And to share his thoughts from the government sector, we'd like to welcome Ramir Angeles. He is a traffic engineer in the local government of Quezon City. Good morning, Ramir. Ramir has been instrumental in the implementation of bike lanes across Quezon City. Morning, Ramir.
Hi, morning,
Now,
everyone.
how do you think these findings will affect the policy and focus of local government units like QC?
Well, it's an interesting question because, of course, this is an idea that I'm already familiar with, and I'm actually already been mentioning this to our city administration. So I've mentioned this to Mayor Joy, our city administrators, and of course, they're aware of this concepts from their experiences abroad. So of course, in the US, there are states and cities which have experience in like the improved economics of having better pedestrianized, better bikeable districts or cities. Boston is one city that they keep on mentioning.
Right.
That's actually like a big thing on why I was able to push for the buffered bike lanes design that we're using, because they use it in the US, and I was like, oh, they're using this in the US and they have some success with it, and they reflected on their experience on it abroad, and they're like, okay, let's just use that. So that's how we started. And then so yeah, basically these are concepts which are already familiar to
Yeah.
our administration. They're quite progressive about it, which is great. But then I think as Sir Christian from SWS has said, these are still quite anecdotal. Of course, if we have tangible, like really solid local data for it, would like really hit the nail on the head and like make them
Right.
support whatever policies that we can recommend alongside it.
Yep. Oh, before I let you continue with your reaction, Ramir, do I understand correctly that Mayor Joy has seen the results of the study?
Oh, not necessarily this study, but like the ideas that you presented, you know, the benefits of cycling in commerce, or like the social aspects of it. So like
Right. How did she react to it so far? I mean, I don't want to jump your talk, but something very interesting. How did she react to it?
I'm not sure if I remember, because I think it's like, I think this was during the part where I was like pitching a lot of ideas related to bike lanes and why we should push for this expansive bike lane network. This was back in 2020 during the pandemic, you know. So like, because I was really in just full swing, you know, trying to push for as much cycling infrastructure, as much bike-friendly facilities as I can. So this was one of the concepts that I was pushing for. And even now, like following with Pasig's, you know, road closures, you know, making them more bike-friendly, and trying to get a bit of that here in QC. It's much harder because we have way wider, larger roads. So it's a challenge to do that here. But try to really push that concept as well, the ones that you presented. Although for this one, I haven't yet, although I would love to give them a copy of it. Or if you can
Yep.
send one, you know,
No,
addressed
definitely.
to Mayor. Yeah, it's going to go.
Definitely.
It's going to go down to me again, but
Definitely. Well, sorry for like taking you out of your talk for a little bit there. It's
that's
just that
okay.
of course Quezon City accounts for a huge chunk of Metro Manila, and I guess in all our daily commutes, in one way or another, we cross Quezon City. So Ramir, let's get well, I'll give you the opportunity to properly react now. Thank you very much.
Oh, no worries. I guess my reaction is more really on that, like, these ideas are really quite familiar to a lot of us, like sustainable mobility advocates and active mobility advocates. And I love that this paper really like compiles them into this one document. You know, it presents a lot of ideas that really support why we should be encouraging cycling more, and push for better cycling policies, better infrastructure, better methods of collecting data so that we can sustain this push for better policy and infrastructure. And this is a good start. You know, it's a mix of a very like conceptual, and there's data also. But then, you know, I guess as we move forward, we should really find ways to make the results of this study very localized, very applicable to each LGU. From the LGU perspective, you know, the thing that makes the mayors and administrators very supportive of these projects, if they see like the very tangible data on what this will do, you know. So for our bike lanes, for example, we do a lot of bike counts. on our own. So if you're aware of our Green Transport Office, the bike patrollers, they're actually helping the June bike counts right now. I think we have 17 bike patrollers who help on the counting. And I'm going to ask for that data also, so we can add that to our database. And yeah, and we want that data because first of all, we want to see what the effects of our bike lanes were. So we wanted to know that this was a benefit to cyclists, to the people. If we see an increase in the number of cyclists, then we can say that the infrastructure is working, and therefore we can make more and make more improvements. So really the data is key in pushing for cycling. And then of course the economic aspect of it is much more important because it helps not just in infrastructure but also in policies. So how we can make policies that promote cycling not just on the street but also on the side of businesses, on end of trip facilities, bike parking, incentives for workers to try to go biking, because that's something that's not being grasped very well by the government. The cycling programs are all bike lanes right now and more on facilities, but then the soft policies of it are still not there. So from the government side, businesses can they can move forward easier because they recognize, they have their own economic analysis on this kind of thing. So if they see that promoting cycling is very marketable for them, it helps their business, then they go for it. But government doesn't recognize that as well. So this data, if the research is done for them about it, and they recognize that, oh, this will help us, it will help our constituents, get us more votes, if that's what's important for them, then they would definitely consider and support promoting cycling more. That's it for my initial reactions.
Okay, thank you very much, Ramir. So I guess what you're trying to say is that, I guess at the beginning of your reaction, what will help local government units is that the data collected and presented to them has to be localized still per LGU. So Bikenomics, are you saying, is still too unlocalized a study? They want something more specific in their city?
Yeah, I think that's my idea of it. Because, for example, if I present your study to our city administrator right now, he would say, "Oh, it's like I think I'm aware of those ideas," and like he's an environmental planner as well, so he's a bit more familiar with it than most administrators are. But then he would say, "Oh, but what do you think? How does that apply to our city, on this district, on that district? Because it's unique. It's unique per area. You have more commercial areas, you have more residential areas,
Right.
and even in commercial areas, you have different kinds of commercial. There's more closer to CBDs, more malls, and you have small businesses.
Right.
So,
Okay, that's interesting. Do you think it's something? I mean, we were talking earlier about a Bikenomics version 2, where we will focus on collecting more data. You've mentioned your city administrator as somebody that seems to at least appreciate data. You think offhand the Quezon City government could help us secure data from businesses in order for us to come up with a more, as you mentioned, localized study?
I think so. Yeah, because I think it's a very interesting prospect. I think I would be very open to it. The current administrator is very data driven, compared to, I think, most previous administrations. and they would be very open to that. I've been trying to get as much data as I can also, and if there was a way to like get the data that we need, for example, in furthering this Bikenomics research, and then there's a way that our businesses, because we have like I think two departments related to business. One is like more small business, one is more overall. Because the data that I've used related to that so far is just the number of businesses. So like I made a map of how many businesses are within a certain distance of bike lanes. So it's like initial accessibility data. But then on like the effects of cycling to them, there's no such data yet. If you can find a way to get that, and see how it improves them, because for a lot of businesses it should have improved, because like if you see how many cyclists there are, it's impossible that there's no effect. So
Right,
it
right.
would be very interesting to see.
Okay, well, that's a nice I guess something to look forward to as we put together Bikenomics too. And of course you mentioned businesses. I'm happy that the Makati, our friends from the Makati Business Club are here. I'm sure there are a lot of members of MBC that have presence in Quezon City, and I guess it's something that we could probably look into. Ramir, you mentioned that you've been collecting data, and it seems from your state, from what you're saying, that this is something that is regularly being conducted. What does that look? What do those numbers look like, and how has it influenced policy in QC?
Okay, so for now we've just been doing bike counts, but then these are done at a very limited scale. It's not at a scale that I would want. I can't really compare the historical data to confirm like how much the volume of cyclists have increased since the pandemic. I'm afraid it might be dropping a little bit, because it's getting quite normal. Right now, we're mostly using it as a supporting figure for our phase 2 bike lanes, which we're planning right now. But then what we really want is to collect data at an interval regularly, so that we can compare, and then we can see that cyclists are using our bike lanes more. If we make improvements on it, for example, if we're putting plant boxes in Commonwealth Avenue, how would that affect cyclists? Does it increase the number of cyclists using it or not? And also, one way we're doing it, so very I guess qualitative way of doing it is getting feedback online. If we can't collect numbers on it, we'll just ask people what they think. Is this good? And then we also like find the comments that are very critical. Even if they're negative, because like maybe we can pluck out things that we can do, to make things better. And then aside from that, there's also projects from UP Diliman that have been coordinating with us. There's, I think, a few research projects ongoing right now. They have CCTV cameras that can detect bikers passing through. So that's a promising new technology that we can utilize. It's a bit more. It's smarter. It's more digital.
Right.
We can collect big data in the future. So very interesting.
Right. Yeah, and it's nice because you mentioned considering putting planter boxes in Commonwealth, and if anyone has experienced biking in Commonwealth, I guess you'll really be able to appreciate seeing life and death unfolding before you. And I guess if it's something that enhances the quality of life, it's something that, as Sir Mike has mentioned, is worth measuring. Remember, if there's any section in the Bikenomics study which section do you feel is most relevant to local government units?
Mm, mm, That's a tricky question. I guess it depends on the LGU. Like I guess for Quezon City, for Mayor Joy, the part on like the social effects of it, the gender equality,
Okay.
especially we just had the Pride March this weekend, and Mayor is very much into equality, gender equality, the like social welfare aspect of it. It's that part is really closest to her in her policies. She focuses a lot on that, and also environmental sustainability. So for because she's like this administration has a lot of like more environmental conscious administrators than I guess some other places. So I think it depends, yeah, on who's leading that LGU, what the center of their policies are like, and then for QC, yeah, it's more of the social aspect of it, gender equality and the environment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ramir. Thank you very much. That's a good insight, no? In terms of what sections we could probably develop more as we go into version 2 to find out what is more relevant for local government units.
Yeah, and it's really safe because like if you would present this to mayor, I would recommend that you focus on some sections more so that like she appreciates the content more. Like if you do focus on the gender equality part of it, it would like really get to her, make it easier to push for policies.
All right, great. That's a huge insight, and I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't have guessed that, and it's nice to know that certain aspects are more important. I mean, I guess varies depending on the focus of each of the mayors. So thank you very much, Ramir, and thank you very much to our 3 reactors from government, the business sector, and also from the academics represented by the social weather stations. So let me slide over now to our questions from the chat box and the comment section. So I guess in general, this is addressed to the Bikenomics team, but any of our reactors are more than welcome to chime in. So, well, first of all, thank you to Kat for summarizing the questions for me. To the Bikenomics team, first question: any calls or panawagan sa incoming Secretary of Transportation?
I would say improve data collection and also really start investing in active transport. Especially now, this is not just anymore a COVID thing. This is now, cycling really addresses a lot of societal problems like health. It was a good COVID-19 response to transport. And especially now with the oil crisis, this is the best time to encourage people to start cycling. And as we presented earlier, it doesn't even take that much in terms of investment in context to everything else. So I think it would be a great time to invest in active transport, not just in cycling, but also in pedestrian infrastructure, actually. So yeah, this would be a great time. And we hope that the incoming Secretary of Transportation could see this and could really emphasize the importance of this in the next few years.
Right. So I think as Ramirez mentioned, I think what we could do next is to send copies of this and officially transmit them to, as Ramirez mentioned, to local chief executives and then perhaps to the office of the incoming Secretary of Transportation. Thanks, Keisha. There's a couple more questions, so I guess we can just keep it very brief for now. Given that most of our roads and culture centers and cars, how do we start normalizing cycling as a mode of transportation? Just throwing it out there for any member of the Bikenomics team.
Maybe I can chime in.
Yep. Really quick answers.
So actually, I mean, this is the reason why we conducted this study. One of the ways to encourage people to choose cycling is to communicate the different benefits that it has on an individual level and on a societal level. So we hope actually that this study achieves that in some ways. We hope that the figures that we've shown during our presentation has allowed people to understand the benefits of biking better. That's one way we want to encourage people to cycle more. We also hope that the study encourages government to invest in cycling infrastructure on a regular basis, because again, the benefits, as we mentioned during our presentation, are very significant. So that's one way we're trying to encourage people.
Thanks, Iya. Ramir, this one is for you. With the rising cost of fuel prices and of course COVID-19 and a worsening state of transportation, what else can be done so that LGUs will promote and act on initiatives to promote biking?
Right. That's a very nice question, and it's something that we're actively working on right now. Because at the moment, the easiest way to approach this is to really protect your bike lanes. Keep them clean, keep them unobstructed, and promote. Promote cycling to people. We've been doing this through social media. It's a very easy way to do it. We're just making infographics, promotional materials, having our Quezon City government page to post it, and I think that even that is already quite important, because you see that it's already coming from the top. It's not just the advocates promoting it, but you see that your local government is promoting it directly as well. So and if you see like the presence of, like, for example, the bike patrol enforcers, guiding bikers on the bike lane, apprehending people parking, keeping the bike lanes clear, it helps, because they see the bike lanes as a place that's really bikeable, and that's a start that you can do. For example, for LGUs that already have bike lanes, is to just monitor them, keep them clear, and you can already do that. You just deploy traffic enforcers there at peak hours. It's that simple. Well, it should be that simple, but it's really not, because for example, in QC we have limitations in manpower. We only have so many bike patrols for how fast of a network that we have. But then our plan is to add more bike patrollers. They want 200 more. See if we can make that happen. And really is to keep on improving bike lanes, encourage businesses to have bike parking. We have ordinances for that, and we're working on the IRRs for that, so we can start notifying major business establishments. That's what the new ordinance that we have right now, to have them have bike racks. We're fabricating bike racks now for publics, for schools, for government buildings, and so those are the kind of steps that you can do, is to take advantage of the facilities that you have, and to keep on adding more, and to promote directly to the public, to your stakeholders.
Right.
promote cycling. Yeah.
Right. So proper enforcement of bike infrastructure so that it remains unobstructed, proper maintenance so that it's of good quality, rid of defects, I guess. Setting the standards for businesses, making sure that there's proper end of trip facilities
Yeah.
and implementing the correct policies to to set the designs
Yeah.
for
Yeah. And
establishments.
yeah, I would just suggest that, because the fuel prices are rising right now. We don't know how it would behave in the near future. So the best thing to do right now is to see what you already have, and then you make steps that you can do right now immediately, so that you can do it now. Because like if you know government, it's not the fastest thing to act.
Okay, thank you very much, Ramir. Some questions, well, guess sliding back to the AltMobility team. There's a question here from Commuter Group. Assuming that most citizens are already using bikes as their main mode of transportation, are there any possible economic implications or impact on other groups such as rate of unemployment for Grab drivers, GP drivers, and other drivers of public utility vehicles? What do you think is the impact of the increasing use of biking to
I'll answer that. So usually people actually pit like public transport and active transport against each other, which is a very car-centric way of thinking. Because if we look at the studies done by Movas One and the statements and everything, and even if you go out in the streets of Metro Manila, you'll see that there really is a shortage in our transportation system. So anything that will help alleviate this is we're all working together. Active transport is always going to go hand in hand with public transport. So while there, it usually the thought is like there's an economic impact. And I had this like challenge before in UP Bike Share, because they tried to put the bike sharing system inside UP Diliman. And then one of the concerns of the Jeep drivers was, oh, you're going to take our passengers. But it never really happened. They still had passengers. There were just more people cycling. So we have to get out of this notion that we're pitting them against each other, but they're actually working together. And maybe in the future, actually, it would be ideal for public transport and active transport to go together so that it can be multimodal. In terms of the economic impacts of it now, especially to our transport workers, actually, a lot of our transport workers are not always driving. Maybe some of them are even cycling. And maybe it will be easier for them because, they're just because they're driving all the time doesn't mean that that's also their main mode of transport. We never know. And maybe we need future studies to see what that really is. But yeah, this will just kind of help them also, improving active transport and promoting active transport can just even help alleviate this over this huge demand for transport and maybe make it easier for them, because it's a whole complicated system. But what our point is just to get people to where they need to be the most efficient way, and those two working together would work. So yeah, I don't know if I really answered the question, but the question itself is just like,
yeah. No, but I'll have to. Yeah, but and I definitely agree with you. I mean, when we design cities, it has to be a system of transportation options that does not necessarily compete with each other, but a system that builds on or complements each other. And while there are mass public transportation options, you still need active transportation to get people from their homes to these mass public transport modes. And I guess the responsible thing to also do as a city or as a national government is to be able to provide everybody with multiple forms of transportation. Well, especially the more sustainable ones, the ones that are able to move people and not cars. And I guess as Keisha has also mentioned, with the rising fuel prices, which also impact the cost of basic goods and services, being able to provide people with a cheap form of transportation like biking is very important. And I guess that's really just how savings work. So thank you very much, Keisha, for taking that question. We're moving on to another question from a commuter group. I think it's pretty long, actually. So this is relating more to health. So heads up to health for the Bikenomics team. An inquiry we have is as regards to revolving the extent of incompatibility of biking to the climate situation in the country, especially that a lot of areas are prone to flooding and that there are limited options for the biking population to resort to in combating certain hazards. So A, is it a healthier choice as it might put the biker on vulnerable position, I guess more prone to sicknesses like colds, flu, etc.? And what is the possible action to ensure that road hazards are prevented?
Okay, so thank you so much for that question. I think there are three main parts here. I'll try to address each one. Number one is the incompatibility of biking supposedly to our climate situation, especially in the context of flooding. I think what I'd like to say about this is number one, flooding poses a challenge to all modes of transport, not just biking. But actually, in times of disaster, in times of the past typhoons that we've had, the first response after the typhoon were actually people on bikes, many people on bikes, because it's one of the most resilient modes of transport. You don't need massive road clearing activities before it can get through maybe hazard-stricken roads. It doesn't rely on fuel. So actually, even in my own experience of responding to disaster here in my home city in Pasig, we were on bikes at the very first day. And surprisingly, it's very resilient when even in the context of flooding. It is a challenge, of course, but it's a challenge for all transport modes. And biking is actually, if you're on a bike during a hazard, it could also be an advantage. So that's number one. Number two is it a healthier choice, as it might put the biker on a vulnerable position for colds, flu, etc. That's a great question. I think that yes, it's important to acknowledge that while there are positive health benefits to biking, there also could be this negative health benefit, especially with the current infrastructure, the current environment that we have in our cities. The question is, what is bigger? Yung positive effect ba ng combating non-communicable diseases, making our immune system healthier, etc., or exposing us to the hazard of possibly contracting colds? And from this is not included in our study, but from my own personal reading, the research tells us that it is the other positive health benefits of biking outweighs this particular negative effect, especially because in the long run, you're taking people out of cars and placing them on more sustainable modes of transport, which in the end will lower their exposure to that particular hazard of air pollution. So this is the more long-term solution that we need to be investing on. I think the last one is, what is the possible action to ensure that road hazards are prevented to protect the bikers? This is something that we've been saying time and time and again. Infrastructure. Proper infrastructure is what we need to protect our cyclists from road hazards. Road hazards such as air pollution and road hazards such as road crashes. So we need proper infrastructure to do that. And that's the only way we'll be able to feasibly protect them from these hazards.
Right. Thanks, Iya. And now we're gonna move on to our last question from Nina Castro. How can universities help push the transition towards better cycling infrastructure in the Philippines? Anybody from the Bikenomics team? How do you think can universities help? Or even from Ramir, our representative from government, how do you think can universities help transition towards better cycling infrastructure in the Philippines?
More research.
More
Uh,
research.
But that's what's on the top of my head. Because like lately there's just been a lot of undergrads doing their thesis on bike lanes, on sustainable mobility, active transport, you know. And that's a great development that we've seen coming from this pandemic, you know, this bike boom. Because during my time, you know, I was a civil engineering undergrad, and like I was in the transportation engineering group, and I was the only one with a thesis topic that's remotely like active mobility oriented. Although I think there were some pedestrianization topics, but then now there's like so many research projects that are working on cycling, you know, and each one of them can be very important, you know, if they solve like a problem, if that for example LGUs face, or you know, businesses face, or the national government face. It's a very promising tool that they can use. Like for example, the thesis that I made eventually became the basis for the whole Quezon City bike lane network, because that's like what I did, and it acted as like the data basis for it. You know, it made the push for the Quezon City bike lane network that much easier if you have that data, you know. And it came from like an undergrad research. So, you know, don't underestimate like what you're as university students, what you can do in terms of promoting cycling, because you can do a lot.
Thanks, Ramir. Yep. And I have to agree with you. I mean, back in Pasig Transport, we've had a lot of universities approach us to test run some of their ideas, and that's been instrumental in some of the policies that we've also done. I remember DLSU testing a bike counting software that they developed in house. And they always look for opportunities to implement their projects or their proposals in a real life scenario. Sir Arnold, I understand you would like to add to the conversation, to the question.
Yes, thanks Ira for that. And I think just plugging in rin for the talk on Thursday, and it's very, you know, it's very timely that somebody asked about yung sa universities, and that is what we are going to do with UP Los Baños. We're going to hopefully by the end of the year or early next year to do a pilot of a shared mobility, you know, electric bikes and electric scooters within the university. So they were going to be in charge of the hard infra. Tipaklong as the private sector partner will be in charge of the movable assets and the software for that shared mobility business. So yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting for us to do it, this pilot. And then if we can make it successful, then, you know, we're looking at several other universities, you know, in the country, including, you know, the Katipunan universities that they did some initial bike sharing projects in the past. So I guess, you know, we'll just wait for this project that we will do with UP Los Baños, and hopefully maybe next year we can share some actual experience on that.
Thank you very much, Sir Arnold. We have a lot of questions that we still have yet to answer, and we're hoping perhaps we can address those questions later on in some social media posts. But thank you to everybody who submitted your questions or your reactions, and we've collated them and we'll try to address them perhaps in some social media posts. So thank you again to the Bikenomics team for your presentation, and to all our reactors, and to everybody who sent in their questions. I'd like to now introduce and call on uh, the country director of FNF Philippines, Rebecca Zistel, to deliver her closing remarks. Of course, we'd love to continue thanking FNF Philippines for supporting this study that has made it very possible for us to humanize and then to put an actual number to the benefit of biking. Hello, Rebecca. How have you been?
Hi, Ira. Thank you. So, yeah, Ira introduced me already. I'm the country director of the Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom here in the Philippines. And as Ira also said, we conducted this study together with AltMobility. And I also saw that my team member, Pearl Mars, is here in the call as well. And it was actually all on her behalf that the study came together. So a very special thanks to Pearl, because she knitted the network to Ira, and they came up with this really great cause. And 2 points I want to say is that I really like your background, Ira, Regina, and Keisha, because it shows that cycling is not new. I mean, it has been there for so long, and like now during the pandemic, it got a completely new wind. I mean, in the truest sense of the word. And actually, I can just tell you that I'm from Germany, as you can hear, but in my teenage years, I never took the bus. I just cycled everywhere, which is also why you would never find a dress in my wardrobe, because for me the dress was just like way too unpractical, and I was like, I cannot go on the bike, like, you know, give me away with this dress. So but yeah, I mean, cycling has been around for so long, and now with COVID and the restrictions, not just the restrictions but also the health concerns, like we don't want to be crowded with, so to say, like too many others who we don't know, because we don't know, do we get, like, you know, do they pass the virus to us, or is it maybe even us passing on the virus? So it really got a lot of attention. And I'm not sure about the Philippines, but in Europe there was even a shortage of bicycles. Like, you could not get a bike. It was kind of like similar, like a waiting time for a car. Like, you had to order it, and then like you had to wait for it, which is a complete no-one. But yeah, and then when you look around here, that now there are so many bikers, but there are so few bike lanes, or the bike lanes that got installed are not really like thought through, because you can see that they were just like painted on the street, but maybe like the person designing them isn't really riding a bicycle themselves. So it often gives a lot of obstacles and dangers to the cyclists. Yeah, so I think there is, like, I mean, on the other hand, I also don't want to, like, you know, diminish this effort, that at least there is like attention now to the cyclists, but it just shows that much more needs to be done. And I feel that cycling was always seen as, oh yeah, it's good for the individual, like it's good for my own health and it saves me time, but then kind of like, this is it. And this study really puts a monetary number to cycling, that it's not just for me, there is actually a benefit for the overall society. There will be reduced healthcare costs, because when I'm healthier, I also have a lesser burden on the overall system. But also, when you look into the costs of constructing a bike lane versus constructing a lane for cars, that taxpayers get so much more out of their money, or like actually like more length out of their money, if bicycle lanes would be constructed instead of car lanes. And I think this is really like a very novel perspective that hasn't been there before, because as I said, it was always like, oh yeah, cycling is good for you, and that's where it then stopped. So with those numbers, I think there is really leeway that can be used and that can be shown to policymakers, to lawmakers, and say, hey, it's not just for the individual. There is really a strong benefit for the overall of society. But then it shouldn't just be, the communication shouldn't just be to those policymakers, but also to the public, because so many people still don't know about this. And I think it's really eye-opening. I mean, even when I read the study and I said that I'm really a cyclist by heart, I have to say I haven't dared yet to venture out on the streets of Manila yet. But it was really eye-opening for me, even, that, wow, you know, like there is really kind of like a greater good in this, instead of just like benefiting me. And in this way, I see it as a two-pronged approach, that it's not just going to the policymakers and to the LGUs and say, hey, you need to do more for the cyclists, but also having this as a bottom up, that so many more people can be convinced with those numbers in the studies to at least give cycling a try. And we now also have thanks to the initiative of Pearl, we also sponsor free bicycle lessons. So if you don't know how to cycle, there are outlets that teach you. So that should not be a game breaker. And that all of this in sum encourages more people to hit the pedals and give even more and additional new wins to the bicycles, which have been around for so many years. And I can just again refer to your background, which I think is like really, really cool. And now we can cycle ourselves, right? We don't need a rickshaw driver to carry us around. So on behalf of FNF, I also want to thank AltMobility again for partnering in the study and the initiative. And also again, a big hand of applause, please, to our colleague Pearl, who is managing the climate project by herself, and it's really based on her initiative that this study came together.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. And of course, thank you very much to Pearl, to FNF Philippines for supporting this study and a lot of the other initiatives that promote biking in the country, as you've mentioned, the free bike lessons. And yes, I think, I definitely agree with what you've mentioned, that it's not anymore just about the individual benefit, but how this really benefits society as a whole. And the need to really communicate that. Of course, I was about to ask, and you've mentioned that you have yet to venture out into biking in Metro Manila, and I hope you might want to consider this Saturday as an opportunity to do that. This Active Transport Week culminates in a bike ride on Saturday. We will be biking on EDSA to take a look at the bike lanes that the national government has constructed. Let's try to see what we've accomplished in the last 2 years and see how else we can improve that. So it's going to be a nice bike ride on EDSA on Saturday that starts at 4 p.m. at the People Power Monument that culminates in a gathering at the grounds in Ortigas. So, Rebecca, if you have yet to venture out into biking bravely in the streets of Metro Manila, Saturday might be a good start for you, where we can all gather together and culminate this Active Transport Week. So thank you very much, Rebecca, and thank you very much to, of course, the AltMobility Bikenomics team for your presentation, and to Sir Arnold, Sir Mike, and Sir Bobby, and Ramir, our reactors, for today's presentation. So again, this has been the Active Transport Week. a celebration of the 2 years of work of the Move As One coalition, a celebration of sorts, but also a way to again escalate the need to do more in order to promote active transportation in the Philippines. Before we close this program, we'd like to invite everybody to turn on their camera for a very quick group photo. So once again, thank you very much to everyone for joining. And of course, not just the ones here in Zoom, but to everybody joining us in social media. Thank you for your comments. Again, if you will be posting, please use our hashtag #BetterByBicycle. Please tag your local government leaders to inspire them to do more to promote active transportation in the country. Pat will be doing the honors, I think. When you're ready, please. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining Active Transport Week. This has been brought to you by Move As One Coalition, AltMobility PH, and FNF Philippines. Thank you. Have a great day and see you all on the road or on the way. Bye-bye.